Hello and welcome to State of the Game. My name is Grouch, and I will be your host. I am joined today by John, Sharp, Karl, Mclain, Caed, and Symbolic. As you can see, our good friend Fanaram is dead, missing. I really have no idea. Yeah, so we've got quite a few things to talk about today, and we are running a little bit behind because we did have the issue with Fanaram, so we're just gonna jump right into it. And I guess I'll let you guys just take it away.
Yeah, we love you, Fan.
Yeah, jump right into it, John. I know we got a lot of stuff to cover, so go ahead.
All right, so yeah, we're going to break this into two sections, and based off popular requests from the forums, we'll try to go as quickly as we can so the players have time to speak.
Yep.
So general stuff first, and then we'll go into specific previews for the balance that's coming down the pipe for you guys. So the first thing we wanted to talk about was we're going to do a split on confusion and retaliation between World v. World and PvP.
Yeah, so we're going to use the same numbers as we use in PvP for retaliation and confusion while you're in the World vs. World. In PvE, it'll be the same as it always was.
Yeah. And this is just to get those more control over the balance there, because as you guys know, World v. World fights are very different from PvP, which is very different from PvE. We've tried to keep those numbers the same before, but it's just we need to start splitting stuff because you guys have pushed the boundaries of the game just so far. We have to start balancing each game type differently. So.
Yes, and on top of that, on top of that, we've also implemented a UI piece for retaliation. It's going to have a new floater. It's going to show up just like, not just like, but it'll show up similarly to how confusion does.
Yep. And a lot of people kill themselves off retal, and they don't really know it, especially new players. So we're hoping that that's going to help people to understand that retal is proccing, and you stop attacking whatever you're attacking. Be careful with it. So.
Yeah.
Some other stuff. We're just going to try to blast through the entire patch note list. You guys will see the whole list later, but here's kind of a preview. Revealed, the number for revealed has actually been reduced in PvE to kind of help that.
It's back down to 3 seconds.
Yep.
It's going to remain at 4 seconds in PvP though.
Yep. And that's because a lot of PvE thieves were crying that change really didn't do much for them, but it actually started hurting, but it didn't help the game type that much, so we decided to revert that back to 3 seconds to help the PvE thieves in the world.
Is that PvP and World v. World?
That is PvP only.
Yep.
PvP only. Okay.
This world will go back is going back down to 3 seconds.
So moving on quick, let's see, retaliation. So yeah, we can talk about custom arenas and spectator mode. As you guys have seen, we've got some info already in the world about that. We've got a blog that's already up. 2 of our programmers helped us with that. So we're really excited about custom arenas and what that's going to let you guys do, which is really important, which you guys can now start setting up your own one-on-one duels. You can start setting up your own invite-only tournaments so that you guys can actually start to see like some really controlled sets of 5-on-5 best players versus best players. It's going to be a lot of stuff that you guys can do. With spectator mode, I hope you guys were able to check out some of the videos we've got on it. Basically, you can go into spec mode, you can watch anybody, you can see their entire breakdown, you can see all of their traits, their weapons, their sigils, their runes, utilities, heals, everything. You see it all. So you can really break down the action just like you can in other games. So we're really excited about what that's going to allow you.
So for that, I was wondering if there's any plans to add like a recording feature, like games like Halo, so that people can review games and like go back, improve, and like shoutcast previous games.
Right now, what we're thinking is we want to really encourage the shoutcast functionality that you see on Twitch and everywhere else. So a lot of games are recorded in those avenues. So we're trying to really push. We've got a lot of requests that say, hey, we want to really push the shoutcasting aspects, and not just recording things. So we want to really encourage the community, which is why we're also not doing more of the type of thing we did before, which was more of an observer mode for GW1, where you can kind of get in there by yourself. There was no commentation. You didn't really know what was going on if you're a new player. We're really trying to push the shoutcasting. So that's why we're not going to go with that for now. So leaderboards, new features going in, which is being able to search for your friends. It's a small little quality of life thing, but lets you kind of see how you stack up with your friends. You can search people, stuff like that.
So for like leaderboards, I was wondering if there's like plans on making a solo queue, because it's been brought up a lot of times that splitting queues could be like bad for the game because it would like split players between the two, but splitting the queues like could result in players quitting because they can't solo, like they can't solo to keep their rating, and new players will feel like they might be fighting pre-mades even though they might or might not be.
Sure,
and, like it's uncertain.
Yet, but that's something that is being addressed. Say too many details, but yeah, that's something that we are very aware of. So
Is there any plans to do other improvements to leaderboards as well? There's a website out there called GW2Guru.info, and they'll give you charts, and they can kind of track your progression and whatnot, and they show you what your best rank was, what day you landed on that best rank, and they show your fluctuation day to day. Is there any plan to do anything like that, or are you just going to kind of leave it up to the community to have those sites?
Yep, we're actually having a lot of talks internally about APIs, which we know watching what we give to you guys, the information we give to you guys. And basically what we want to do right now, which is the same thing we're doing with the beta for Customs and Spectator, is to watch the feedback that we get from you guys. Watch what aspects you guys go after, what you deem to be the most important, and then we'll take that into our feedback, and then that'll influence future changes down the road. So we're kind of watching what you guys do. If that makes sense. So,
Yep.
Anything else to add, or?
I'm good.
All right, so let's see what else. This is a balance thing, but it's going to hit everybody across the board, which is
we wanted
signets.
to mention it in the general section.
Okay, yeah, signets are going to be hit. Now, this is the passive effect. Now, before, a lot of the caps for the passive effects for an ability on a signet was a 90. Now that's been changed to like basically a 20 base with 2 per level, which comes out to about a 180. So it's basically doubled. So all signets that just augmented a single stat will be basically doubled from what they were before.
Yeah, basically before there wasn't really a choice of whether you use the signet or not. Like, I mean, you would use it if you had like a trait that said however many signets you have off of recharge, you get bonuses. But signets, you're not really like giving much up. You're giving up like before you were giving up a small portion of stats. It wasn't really noticeable at all.
Sure.
So we wanted to increase the passive effects of that. So now you're actually making a choice of like, do I lose this 180 power or do I gain this extra awesome thing?
Sure.
This sounds
Are you worried? Sorry, go ahead.
Sounds like it could really send 5 Signet Warrior right over the top.
Yeah, it's actually
Poor Peters. Poor Peters.
John was
So we'll explain it a little bit. He caught a lot of flack for that. We'll explain in a bit why he was doing that, and as soon as we tell you some of the other changes for signets, you'll go, oh, that's why he was doing that. So, but you had a question though.
I was wondering if like maybe this would cause some signets to be too strong as passive and like would just kind of tone down gameplay. Like it wouldn't be very active. People would just let their signets sit there and not really mess with them. Because I know rangers already do that, and some other classes might start doing that as well.
That is something that we've chosen which signets to increase carefully, but that is something we want to keep an eye on. Though the active effects tend to be situational, and you have to wait for the situation arises in order to actually use a signet. So
that is a good point though, Rims. And also like not everything is equal. Like sometimes like precision is actually more viable than maybe just healing would be, or healing power or power. So they don't all necessarily scheme the same way with the same builds. So that's something we definitely have to keep an eye on. And then also you'll see this coming up in the patch notes. We're changing some of the actives for some very key signets. That's going to make you want to give up that stat that you just had to get a very powerful active. So once we get into the balance, you guys will hear about that. But it is definitely a good point, Caed.
The next note we got is pets.
Yeah, so rangers.
Rangers, necromancers, mesmers, all pets in the game now have. We've changed the way they function just a little bit, and we've added the ability for pets to not get aggro from things you haven't already aggroed. So if you're running around PvE, anything like that, with creatures that are aggressive to you, and you're successfully skirting their aggro, then your pets are not going to be like wandering into the radius and catching.
Yeah. Also, you want to talk about the melee archetype? Want to get into it now, or just wait?
We wait for that one.
Okay, so we'll wait on that. Rangers, there's a little bit more coming down the pipe. We'll wait on that. So we'll jump over to Spirit Watch. We've put in a lot of changes. Tyler Bierce, he's been on here before on the State of the Game. He's put in a lot of changes. We're watching the balance on that map really closely. We know that sometimes it can be frustrating to deal with certain runner specs. So some of the things we're doing is ride the lightning distance has actually been reduced when carrying the orb.
Yes.
So this is going to be a pretty big hit based off what the Ellie had before. Invulnerable skills, another one. Sorry, Ellie, you're going to get hit by this as well. So stuff like Swarm, Elixir S, those actually now drop the orb, which means that if you're going to use that, you might save your bacon, but you're going to drop the orb in the process. Going to put some more tension there. We also did something which was a fan suggestion off the forums, basically that said, what if you push back the initial spawn time of the orb? So we're going to push that back 10 seconds after the match starts, which means you won't have that initial, you just see all the LEs ride the lightning right to the orb right from the beginning, which is what you were seeing before. It's going to be 10 seconds before it pops up, which means you're going to have more of a fight as soon as the map starts to kind of take control of the initial orb. So we'll see how that works.
And the last thing is that the channel time for actually obtaining the orb has been increased. from 2 to 3 seconds.
And we wanted to try that number first, so as you guys know, we don't want to do whack-a-mole, so we were talking about doing like a 5 to 6 second, which we thought was just too much to begin with. So we thought we'd try a 3. If that's not strong enough, maybe go to a 4. A lot of stuff like the Ranger, for instance, he needs a lot of evasion, he needs a lot of dodges, that kind of stuff. So that means the Ranger can't just sit there and channel and use those skills, which means it's going to put pressure on that initial cap from the Ranger to try to just pick up the orb in the first place. So we're trying to balance that there to make sure that that's fun for the person trying to cap as well as people trying to stop the cap. And then let's see what else. Also, we're going to have a lot of bug fixes and pathing fixes for that math, so that you dropping your papers, bro.
Oh well, just leave that.
So we're going to have some fixes for that math, which will help with a lot of things that I think that players like Ramsey have noted that, like, basically there's just places you just get stuck and it's really frustrating. You're stuck on pebbles, you're stuck on trees, you're stuck on branches on the ground. So that's what we're talking about. Going forward, so let's talk about this real quick, is that next month we're going to do a lot more bug fixing and less balance, because this balance patch is pretty massive.
Yeah, we'd like to let kind of the meta develop and people, figure out new builds and new strategies and stuff like that, rather than being like balance now, balance next month, but before we get actual information of like how things are being run.
Yeah, so for next month we're going to take it easy on balance. Now if there's anything egregious like super big stuff, people cry about the cantrip LAs, they cry about, sorry, cry is not the right word. They complain with good justification about how strong the cantrip LA is, how strong the HGH NG has become. If there's something that's just completely out of whack, then we'll definitely hit that. But overall, we want to hold off on balance and do a lot of bug fixings next month.
What do you mean by bug fixes, exactly?
So bug fixes for like traits, for skills, like here's one off the top of my head. Ride the Lightning before was actually doing about a 1500 range when it's actually supposed to be a 1200 range. That was just a bug that we had to fix. So that's an example of just one off the top of my head, as well as some traits that aren't proccing correctly, maybe not the right percentage.
We've got some internal cooldown stuff, like traits that still don't have internal cooldown, so we'll probably be adding some of those too.
Yep. So
Could you fix some of the wording on the traits so it would actually show internal cooldown?
That's exactly what we're going to be looking at, actually.
Yes.
That is exactly why we're doing this. Also, we're looking at doing facts. You know how on any skill, it'll have the facts below it about what it actually does, all the detailed numbers? We're trying to look at moving a lot of that information into traits as well, to give you guys very specific information on every single trait.
Yeah, so we're looking at adding actual, like the skill facts you see in your skills, putting those into the traits, and we'll probably be taking a lot of the actual numbering out of the descriptions itself.
Yeah, we're rewriting those descriptions.
Yeah.
So. And then the last thing before we get on to the specific balance, let's talk about haste and the haste nerfs. This is one thing that came up on the forums about why we didn't talk about that. Why we didn't talk about that is we were kind of on the fence at the time. We had talked about it internally. We had some numbers thrown around. We didn't want to talk about it with you guys too early until we were ready, so that's why we didn't bring it up. So we weren't trying to keep things from you guys or anything. It's just we just weren't sure at that point.
It was a balance change that ended up being finalized after we had State of the Game.
Are you guys happy with that change, by the way? The overall changes?
We are. What we're trying to do in general, and to let you guys know the overall philosophy, is we're trying to slow down the pace of the game in some places. For new players, sometimes they can just get spiked up way too quick. Also, when you watch a game, now that we've been watching a lot of stuff on Spectator, sometimes haste just in some fights it just completely takes over and dominates the match. Haste is just such a powerful tool, as you guys, if you've been running it, you know that, and then being able to res people is just very, very powerful for stopping as well.
And there are still like extreme spikes out there where like the fight ends almost instantly, and they were previously they were ending the fights even faster. So,
is there any plans to reduce the negative effect of haste and frenzy?
Yes.
All that stuff.
Yep.
So that's actually we don't have any notes about that. So yes, haste is.
Yep. We've actually done a lot of that for this patch.
The negative effects have been reduced.
Yep.
And the durations of it increased again slightly.
Yep. So that's something we'll get to in the balance in a sec.
But this is only for skills, like utility skills. So frenzy, haste, cricketing zephyr, and I believe the engineers elixir U. Elixir U.
Yes. Those are the four major ones. Yeah. So yeah, and also when we did it though, we knew that that would also affect how you deal with some bunker builds, because some classes they needed the haste or the haste procs in order to actually deal with some of the bunker builds. So because of that, which we're about to get to in a second, for instance, like with Warrior, there actually are new tools now to deal with those bunkers instead of having to rely on haste.
Do we have to do Warrior first?
We can go Warrior first if you want to, sure.
We can just start with Warrior, I guess.
Okay.
So, for Warrior, this patch, we wanted to push for more viability in PvP without increasing their already potent effectiveness in PvE. So, with that, we have a couple new changes. The first one is going to be Dogged March. Dogged March is a trait. It's in the defense line. It's the Adept Tier 1 major trait, and it's going to be similar to Geomancer's Freedom for the Elementalist, where it's going to actually reduce the incoming durations of Immobilized, Chilled, and Crippled by 33%. And in addition, you're going to get a small amount of regeneration on a cooldown
Whenever you get hit
once by one of those.
And that's what the places turtles, right?
What's that?
You replace turtles?
Yes, this trait is going to replace Turtle's defense, which is a very low popularity trait in the first place. Mainly, I think it didn't really tell you what you were going to get. Well, actually, okay. Next one is called. This is going to be the what we've done is we've taken the adrenaline traits that were in the Discipline Mastery line, the Grandmaster portion, and we've pushed them together. So now those traits are combined into one trait. It's called Burst Mastery, and it's going to both reduce your burst skills recharge as well as reduce the adrenaline it consumes. With that, it leaves room for the new trait that we've been trying to implement.
This is why we did this.
This is the trait we were talking about.
Yep.
This is going to be Destruction of the Empowered. It's a new trait that's going to increase damage to targets by 3% per boon that they have on them. Boon type. Rather than 6 stacks of might, it'd be like if regardless of how many stacks of might you have, you'll still do 3% damage.
Sure. So if you had, for instance, 5 different boons up at a time, you would take 15 additional percentage damage from that warrior that was hitting you.
So going back to that, you're combining that so that adrenaline's it's more accessible, that previous trait. Because I've heard a lot of complaints about warriors, or from warriors, that F1 skills, like the burst skills, are really not that beneficial to use because they're better held onto with a lot of the trait lines, and they can't really make the full effect. Like level 3 is way better than level 2 adrenaline burst, and putting points into adrenaline gain and getting damage from holding that adrenaline is. You're losing out on a lot of other things like damage and utility from other places, and it kind of cuts down on build variety. Do you have any other plans to kind of separate that and maybe spread that out?
In the future, we'd like to implement more ways to spend your adrenaline, I believe. I think that's an idea we've been throwing around.
We've actually got some test passes on things like that from what we're hearing from some of our warriors who give us a lot of feedback. One of the things we wanted to do first, though, was to see how these other traits that we've talked about right now, how they play out, and then see if we can incentivize people, just like we're doing with the signets. We want to incentivize you to actually use those signets, give up your passives. It's the same mentality with the actual burst skills for the warrior, that you want to find really good ways to actually use your burst. Because right now, as you say, sometimes it's better just to take the traits, just build it up, and just sit on it, which is not very fun.
Also, I heard there was a bug that Flurry doesn't give back adrenaline when traded for building momentum. Have you guys seen that? It's the 15 points in strength and grants endurance back when you spend adrenaline.
I don't know. That's a good bug.
I think I know. Yeah.
If you know. So that's another thing.
I can see
what's
what's
next 6 months. Thank you for that.
Cool.
Want to go to the last one real quick?
Last one is a change to the Warrior Signet of Might. Previously, it was kind of like, well, I have power, and then I get more power because it gives me might. And now that we've increased the amount of power that it actually gives you, we feel that it could actually change. We could change its active effect. So now, when you activate the signet, you'll lose that power, but you'll also gain 3 stacks of a buff that says for your next attack you are unblockable. Sure. So for 3 attacks, the warrior will be unblockable when you activate this.
So this is going to combo with a lot of things. Now, this is one of those things that's going to hit PvE a little bit, but it's actually aimed for the PvP warrior who's going to need to get to, if you see a guardian who's throwing up a shelter, if you have an offhand shield, for instance, you could pop your signet, you could bash him right out of his heal right now because he's not going to be able to block it anymore. If you have Arcane Shield, Ellie, that's not going to protect him anymore if you pop this. So that means if you wanted to do a burst, you know it's actually going to get through now if you pop this.
Also, if you're fighting against those pesky hermit crabs, they're going down.
So, go ahead.
I was going to say, warriors require, they rely on a lot of CC to deal their damage. Do you think it's going to be kind of a trade-off with how much damage they do with the boons, or are you going to make some traits like leg specialists more accessible to warriors?
Yep. Do you want to talk about
specialist?
it? Do you want me to talk about it?
Yeah, go for it.
So one of the things we're seeing too is we want to put warrior in a place in the meta basically where they can rely on, if they need the damage, they can then rely on somebody else to get the CC, or if they have their CC up, they can then trade the damage to somebody else. This is something that you saw a lot in Guild Wars 1, which basically if you saw, I don't know if you guys how much you played, but Gale was a really big thing for warriors, and two warriors would actually trade their Gales back and forth, so that one of them would actually use damage, the other one would actually use his Gale, so they would trade it back and forth. So we want to see, with these traits, what that's going to do, and if it's not enough, then we'll keep working on the warrior to get them up in PvP. But that's the kind of style that we'd like to see, is that they can trade that, either I'm going to CC or I'm going to damage, and they can do that back and forth with somebody else. So we'll have to see how that works. So then, go to Thief?
Yes, we'll go to Thief. So the push for this for the Thief this build was to make them more survivable and allow a little bit more versatility in the roles that they play. So with that said, we wanted to improve the viability of the Thief and give it some actual ability to sustain itself. And one of the things we've been looking at over the course of the last few months is reducing a little bit of their overall burst, because players go from alive to dead within a matter of seconds.
Or the flip side of that is, if you get into a build where you don't really need that, the Thief doesn't bring anything else to the table. So we're trying to address that.
So, with that said, we've actually done something interesting to Mug, in which it is no longer actually able to crit. Mm-hmm. So we've removed its ability to crit on attack, but on the other side, it's now going to heal for a certain amount. It's about 2,000, and then it increases with your healing power.
So what this will mean too is that right now that Mug is used as a closer for a lot of Thieves. It's actually the initial skill that they close in with. This is the initiator that they use. We think that this might actually change that this becomes maybe 2 or 3 in your rotation. If you've taken some AoE on the way in, you might use it then. So we'll have to see how that plays out.
We didn't want to take the damaging effect away from Mug, and
right.
It's at a low enough damage multiplier. It doesn't deal a lot of damage, but unless you go really high into the burst, like you have a lot of crit damage and you have a lot of power, and then it gets kind of unmanageable. So we didn't want to take it away from the players who have a low power level. We wanted to make it remain effective for them as a source of damage, but we wanted to make sure that it felt more balanced.
So, do you really think the healing justifies the change? Because say using steel kind of puts you in harm's way, and generally as say a glass cannon, you're not going to be able to really do much with that extra 2,000 health, and it seems kind of counterintuitive.
Well, the other changes are going to help do this as well. So we'll talk about the other changes as well, because that's the exact issue we're trying to fix, is that right now, if you spec high enough to actually get in your really strong burst with the Thief, a lot of times you have no defense by the time you get there. So if the burst doesn't win, you're just in harm's way, you're in melee, and you're in trouble, is what a lot of Thieves are complaining about. So we wanted to fix that issue, which is why the next change kind of speaks to that as well.
Yes.
Going to think about that.
So we've split Flanking Strike. It used to deal 2. It was one command that dealt 2 attacks. So you would spin around your target, and then you would attempt to stab them.
And this is a sword dagger for people who don't play Thieves.
Yes, sword dagger. We've actually split that attack up now, and we've improved the animation quite a bit. So it'll actually track your target a lot better. So on the initial use of the skill, Flanking Strike, it'll move you more towards your target and spin around in addition to evading.
The second part.
On this, and if that actually, never mind. We had a different error. So, yes,
okay.
It'll do this. It'll do the base attack, and then it'll immediately flip over to the next skill, which is called Larcenous Strike. And Larcenous Strike is actually going to steal boons if you successfully hit with the attack.
Sure.
We had a couple different iterations where, if you missed,
yeah,
it would not flip over.
So the initial thing that we're thinking here is that with Thieves, we're trying to fix that exact issue, which is basically, right now they have basically one role for a lot of teams, which is basically, I'm either going to do one of 2 things. Jump in and spike somebody, or number 2, I'm going to have a pistol offhand, and my job is to sit there and just daze the hell out of somebody, or I'm going to be throwing so much blind at them that they can't retaliate back to me. What we're trying to do is get them the ability to actually be in more prolonged fights, but right now they don't have a way to generate a lot of boons, which is one of the issues. That's how a lot of the other classes can actually stay in a fight. They have Vigor, they have Regent, they have Prot. The Thieves doesn't have that. So what we thought is, what we'll try is, the Thief can start stealing a lot of that stuff now with the second strike from Larcenous Strike, Yeah, so that's what we're going to try.
The costs remain the same, so now it's going to be actually 3 strikes for the first evasion portion, and then it's only one initiative cost for the larceny strike.
So what we're seeing is that, especially in the so this guy versus the Ellie, a lot of times he's stealing the regen, he's stealing the vigor that the Ellie usually uses to keep himself alive, and then if he steals the prot, if he steals stability and prot, it's just an overfight. The Ellie can't stand up with him anymore. So we're trying that idea of like he's punishing you by taking those boons from you, but he needs them to be up initially. So he can't generate them himself, but he's good at taking them from other people. So that'll let him stay in those fights and prolong engagement. So that's what we're going to try and see how that plays out for you guys.
So
does this steal stacks of boons? So if I had 20 stacks of might, would it steal every stack of might I had? And would it take the duration with that as well?
Yeah.
I believe it does. Yes.
Yeah. So that's what we're trying to do. It's the same thing, like, for instance, with the HGH NG, who's just like, hey, check out all this might, and then the thief's like, cool, I like that, let me have some. Now the HGH is like, oh, crap, maybe I shouldn't have stacked so high. So, yeah.
I think, like, it adds a lot of viability to Sword Dagger, and it seems like really strong against HGH and LEs and Guardians. But, like, in the past, you guys nerfed a lot of burst builds, and with the Mug nerf, it seems like a lot of those things like Dagger Offhand and Pistol Whip are getting hit again. Are there any plans to like compensate and bring those back up?
Yeah, we want to get the melee strong, but if you remember, for a while, Pistol Whip was just completely broken.
Yes.
You couldn't get out of it. It was too much. So as we start to get these other tools, which is what we're talking about with the Thief, not just damage, but the tools to stay in combat, not just the DPS, but the tools. One of the other things that the Thief often needs is they just need some better base numbers, we think, for a lot of their damage, because that will let them to spec more into defensive stuff, because right now you have to spec all in on offense if you want to actually kill stuff, which is one of the things that the Thief is dealing with right now, which is hard for them. So we got to fix that.
I think one of the reasons that people stopped playing Pistol Whip obviously was the damage nerf, but I think now with the haste nerf as well, I think it probably needs to have the damage brought back up to make it a viable build again.
I know the main reason I stopped playing Pistol Whip is because if you attack 3 people with retaliation, you just kill yourself in 1 Pistol Whip, and it's really not viable in a team fight.
So yeah.
So.
Regarding Mug, I mean, obviously the not being able to crit is going to be a big change on how you play the class. I think it's going to completely change everything. It's going to take a lot of adjustment. Is there any plans to add additional utility to Mug? I think Caed had mentioned possibly making it like a shadow step if you use it without a target.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, we've actually talked about that. Actually, one of the things we want to do too, you'll notice that in our other changes that we're about to talk about, is the Ellie is kind of coming down in mobility. What we're trying to do is push the Thief's mobility up. So that might be the case that if you go to steal and you don't have a target, what if you actually just shadow step the full distance regardless? It's something that we're playing around with. Thief is just the best mobility on the field is what we're trying to push. And then when they do get there, they're dictating fights by like, you thought you had those boons, but now our team actually has them. So we're trying to get that. We want to have a different role for the Thief, because up until now it's been that I'm just there to DPS stuff, and if I can't DPS it, then why would you ever bring me? Just bring a more sturdy body instead of me. So we're trying to fix that ability. We had some iterations of before where they had so much evasion that you couldn't kill them. So that was the other side of that they were so sturdy that you couldn't deal with them. It was frustrating to play against. So we're trying to balance those two against one another. You give them some more other options in the fight.
Do you still want Thief to be the most bursty class? Or profession, rather? Is that the role that you want for it to be the biggest spike damage?
If anybody bursts, yeah, it's probably going to be the Thief. Okay. Some people can get kind of close, right? Some of the warrior specs can get kind of close. So they can get close.
Shot. That kind of thing.
Do you think it's possible to, like add some higher tier traits that share those boons that you steal with Larcenous Strike in the future?
We've actually talked about doing that the same way we do Venom. So the idea would basically be that the Thief can go in, steal stuff, and then throw it to the rest of your team. So yeah. It won't be in for this patch though. But yeah, but we have played around with the idea. Yeah. So we'll try to keep moving.
Next one.
Yeah,
okay.
Ranger.
Right. Next up is Ranger. Along with the along the vein of AI improvements, now that they can't aggro hostile enemies, the next portion is we have a new melee archetype for the melee pets. So now if your pet is if you send your pet to attack a monster and it hasn't gained aggro from a monster from that target, it'll move behind the target. So it'll attempt to move behind. As long as it doesn't have aggro, it'll try to stay out of that cleave range that a lot of creatures have. The next one.
There was a lot of a lot of number tweaks, but there's 2 really big things we want to talk about for Rangers.
We have actually this is yours, I think.
Okay, yeah, I can talk about it real quick. So pet stat improvements have happened for all stats for all pets in the game. So this will basically mean that the hit point and the toughness for all pets has actually come up. This is going to mean that they're much more durable, for instance, in dungeons, in World, stuff like that. And the second aspect of this is that the activation skills, so your F2, if you're a ranger, has been drastically improved, which means that it's going to have a much faster reaction time. So what this means is that before, if you guys played ranger, you had a hard time positioning your pet to where you wanted them to be. For instance, if they had like a daze or a stun or something, it was hard to get them to the target and then, in the right spot and then actually activate their daze. Yeah. So we brought down the activation times for all those things while also improving the toughness for all the pets. So this is going to give them a lot more responsiveness in addition to AI improvements. So we've done a lot for the ranger this patch.
I had a question. Like, is it possible that you guys could put, like, to reduce the RNG of pets by adding that second ability to a hotkey so that people can actually control their pet further, and it'll increase the skill cap usefulness and like the counterplay of rangers?
Chomp or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, like say the leaps on canines, like being able to use those instead of having it just RNG leap.
Isn't it on Pet Swap?
It's not.
Okay, I thought it was on Pet Swap.
It's on a cooldown from the pet itself.
I noticed that the leap knockdown actually starts happening if somebody starts channeling something. That's what happens with the canine knockdown.
Yeah, a lot of specific things that they're set to
look for before they activate their skills. It's something we've talked about. The thing that we're worried about is that it would be so much micro, especially for new players, that right now you just have the one ability to deal with, which is basically just your F2. So it's something we've talked about, Ramsey, but we're just worried that Do you
think maybe you could make it like a toggle, like an auto cast?
It's something we could talk about, yeah. But right now we're afraid that would give a lot of control. Like you can imagine the APM actually be necessitated for something like that is really high. So it actually takes the skill ceiling and goes up with it. The thing we have to be careful about that as designers is that we don't make it so that people can't use it. So maybe an option would allow us to do that. So we'll have to think about that.
I might catch some flack for this, but how do you guys feel about the leash range for ranger pets? Like a ranger sitting on a back node and having their pet contribute in the mid-fight?
Pretty long.
It's really long,
I have to say.
I think the increase to the toughness and HP is going to make that a little worse too, because pets will be sitting in the mid-fight longer before a ranger has to switch them.
Yep.
That's true. Well, we'll have to keep looking at that and see if we can address.
Yeah. Do you have more of a question, Grouch? Like something on the tip of your tongue?
No, I was looking at my other monitor. It's fine. No, that's fine. But you guys are gonna essentially evaluate it and make changes if necessary.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
I think there's also a bug where you can. Sorry, Chaplain. I think there's a bug where you can change pets during tournament matches as well. So is there any chance of that being changed so Rangers can't just swap pets out during matches?
That's why we want to take some time off and just do bugs to just start fixing all those types of things. Yep.
Last thing for Ranger is we get the Spirits utility skills that have not had a whole lot of... we've done some improvements to their overall health by quite a bit, and then we've improved the trait which increases their proc rate by about double. So instead of 50% chance to proc, you'll have about 70% or 70% chance.
I think it's 70.
I think it's 70% chance to proc.
Okay.
Keep going, I guess.
We're just trying to hurry so you guys can get to the rest of your stuff.
Sorry. Elementalist.
Ellies. Talk about Ellies.
So this patch, we wanted to tone down the PvP effectiveness without actually affecting it in PvE drastically.
Yeah, but we wanted to make sure that we weren't just we want to increase the other classes without we want to bring this guy down a little bit, but increase the other guy's ability to counter this guy. And then when I say this guy, I'm actually speaking specifically about either Scepter or Dagger main hand with the Cantrip Ellie, because right now staff is not really seen a lot in competitive play, but it's seen a lot in World and it's seen in PvE. So we wanted to make sure we weren't just nerfing all the Ellies, because some of them are not as strong as just the specific Cantrip Ellie.
Yeah, and we don't want to overdo it as well. So we made smaller changes. However, some of them are actually somewhat big.
Sure, let's go through them.
First one, Mistform. This is a big change. The Elementalist is going to no longer be able to use utility skills while Mistformed. The idea behind this is we want...
This includes heals as well?
Yeah, we want to space out the survivability of the Elementalist just a little bit. Meaning that you have to wait until after the Mistform is done to activate your heal.
So this is obviously really big. If you're going to be on a Signet guy, it's not going to matter as much. We'll talk about the Signet itself. Talking about Signet Arresto, the heal. If you are on Ether Renewal, which is going to be able to cleanse off a lot of condies, this is big, which means that now other classes that are trying to condi pressure you are going to be able to succeed at that. Because before, the downside to Ether Renewal, as you guys know, is that it's a channel. So you actually need to be invulnerable while that happens with Misform, and they can never interrupt your heal. Now that's no longer the case, so you have to pick and choose, which means now you can actually watch for the heal on an Ellie and really interrupt them and really cause a lot of damage. Really interrupt them. So
Would they be able to attunement swap?
They will be able to attunement swap.
if it's an instant, they can get over it.
Then the next portion is Ride the Lightning. This was one of the only abilities on the Elementalist offhand, which was very much under its cooldown.
Yeah, so it was just really strong, especially having 20 skills at all times. It was just very low recharge.
Most of the abilities have like a 40-second recharge or so.
So let's talk about the changes for that. So it's going to be a 40. It goes up to a 40, but if you actually hit somebody with it, it's just going to be a 20.
Yes.
So what that means.
So now the Elementalist is going to be able to engage in a fight, and engage in combat and fight it out for a little bit. And when the recharge is up, they can get away from the fight as well. But as if they don't hit anything with Ride the Lightning, that recharge is going to be.
So as an escape, it's going to be much weaker because it's going to have double the duration to come back.
So you can't just disengage in combat and come back into a combat with the same skill.
So is like hitting things like Invuln and Aegis going to start that long cooldown or the short one?
I believe
that would be an actual hit.
Yeah.
So I think in the code it would actually flip it. So it actually thinks that you hit, but the thing that you hit just blocked.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Okay.
What else?
So these two changes are for PvP and PvE.
Yep.
So you were talking about touching cantrip Ellies, but both of those touch like all Ellies in general. Do you have any specific plans of action to like tone down cantrips itself?
Yes. We're about to get to those.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have
Good
two
question.
PvP changes. The first one is Signet of Restoration,
Mhm.
and that one it has been reduced slightly in PvP. And
Now, when he says Signet, what he's talking about is the actual passive,
yes, the
which
actual
is what it
passive
could
effect.
proc multiple times. If you guys have played it, you can actually proc multiple times by switching in and out of stuff.
Activating
so
your
we can tone
cantrips.
down. Yeah, we've toned that down.
Like your dodge roll can heal you
So the
3
active
times
press-
based on whichever trait.
The active press is going to stay the same, but yeah, some of that buggy stuff is going to get changed with this.
And then the last PvP only change is for Cleansing Waters, the 30 point in the water line, which is going to have
So what does that state? What is that?
Yeah.
For people who don't know.
this is the is remove a condition each time you apply regeneration.
So this, taken in conjunction with the ability for cantrips to apply regen, meant that basically you could just keep popping up condies all the time.
You can activate all your cantrips and remove all your conditions basically.
It's extremely powerful.
And now it's going to actually remove one condition every 5 seconds. So you're not going to be able to just spike all of your regen at the same time.
So there's an internal cooldown there. So
Yes.
Okay.
to your question, Kat, that's going to basically slow down the ability. That means that conditions are not going to start to add up to those guys. But then the flip side of that is we did make the Misform change. They would just switch over to Ether Renewal, use Misform and Ether Renewal together, and get the same ability back. So that's why we had to make that change.
Would that change actually make much of a difference since Ellie's the main access to regen is just switching to water and cantrips, and they've only got 3 cantrips anyways, so I honestly don't think that would make much of a difference.
We've seen that it's actually internally it's slowing them down pretty bad. We did, like we said, we don't want to take them completely out of the game, but we want to start slowing them down. So if we need to hit it again next patch, we will. So we just wanted to slowly start to see.
We want to take down just their spike bunker, basically, just a little bit.
A lot of these changes are like meta-based changes, like we look at what the current playstyle is, and you're kind of getting nerfs based on that. I mean,
Yeah.
an effect of this is that like staff Ellie is gonna get hit by this. Like their team role aspect is gonna get nerfed because of the Water 5. I mean, the build kind of needs help anyways, and it's kind of just putting it further into the grave. Is there any plans to maybe make staff a little bit more viable in the future?
It is. We want to see what this change does first to Ellie's, and then we want to see how people react to it. We have a lot of stuff internally that we'll test,
Yes.
and then we'll see it on live, and people react differently to it on live. So we know that staff Ellie still needs to come up. So that's why we don't want to nerf all Ellies across the board if we can help it.
The other thing about the cleansing water change is that it's actually anything. So for a lot of our internal cooldowns, it's like the first thing it hits, that's what it puts the internal cooldown on. This time, it's going to be if, for example, the water staff 5. If that would have remove a condition, it'll remove a condition for everybody in the area. So it'll affect 5 targets, whereas previously for most of our internal cooldowns, it would have only affected 1.
Yep. So we wanted to make sure that was still viable, so we didn't want to hit that too hard, which is why we made the change actually in the script.
So cleansing water is still going to clear off 2 boons or 2 conditions from allies there.
Is there any chance of increasing the viability of other utilities such as conjure weapons and other trait lines like fire and
talk about
trait lines?
in a second.
We actually have a couple of glyph frequency. The storms, the lightning form is going to last a little longer, as well as the earth form. And I think they're pretty sure there's more.
Yeah, there's also some other small stuff, but those are the big things. But you'll see in the patch notes there's some other small stuff. Also, when you get to stuff like you were talking about with the conjures, that's one of those things where we're trying to think about maybe we need to rework those to see what they need to do for the game. Because the idea was before was that an Ellie would bring these things and then he would throw them to other people would pick them up, and not everybody in your team could benefit from these. But right now they're just not really filling that role at all.
They're also affected by some bugs.
Yeah, so we're just thinking about we might need to just rework those. So we'll jump over to Engineer.
Yeah. Engineer, they've got a decent amount of things going this patch. For the most part, we're trying to help diversify the builds that the engineer can go. The first one is that I want to just say that we have been looking at the HGH builds, and we know that it's incredibly intense condition pressure they can apply.
And the might stack.
Yeah, along with my stack and the sigil of metal. With that said, we have some interesting changes to help kind of diversify the builds a bit. The first one is that healing turret. It has gotten some kind of cool changes to it. It's first of all, it's had its initial heal reduced by quite a bit because the point of the this healing skill is to supply a turret that actually constantly heals you, rather than drop a turret, it heals you, you pick it back up. That's what the way to use it before was. Now it's going to be you drop the turret, it heals you initially, and then its overcharge and its regular passive heals are going to be a lot stronger.
As well as giving you field and some conduit removal.
So the overcharge is now going to drop a water field on the ground. If the overcharge recharge has been reduced to, I think it's about 20 seconds. And then it's also going to apply healing in an area, so you're going to be a much more viable team fighter. And in addition, the overcharge also removes conditions.
Because right now, basically a lot of engineers, if you guys have played it, they're kind of relying on elixirs to deal with condies, so we wanted to give them another option to deal with condies. So we're trying to push another style of build for them.
I feel that in team fights, teams would start focusing that turret really quickly and bring it down a lot faster, so that it wouldn't really do very much in the long term.
Yeah, because now that they have something very powerful in the field, and you can directly counter it by active play. And then the other team can also then protect that turret if they want to keep it up. So that kind of provides play back and forth.
Do you think the turret's strong enough to be able to be kept up?
Right now, it looks like it is, but we'll have to see if it changes to deal with it. If it does, we'll have to bring the hit points up on it. We'll have to see. Because imagine, too, in PvE, in World v World, dungeons, nothing's going to be focusing that healing turret.
Yeah.
So there might be a split where we have to make a split in PvP hit points versus PvE hit points for that turret.
Next item, let's see.
So, Incendiary, talk about
Incendiary explosives. So this was applying 2 seconds of burning, 3 seconds, and condition duration kind of extends that to 100% uptime of burning. But it was mainly only 100% uptime with grenades. So in an effort to kind of diversify the builds available, we wanted to space out the cooldown for burning. So what we've done with it is now it's going to be burning for 4 seconds every 10 seconds on crit. But the chance has gone from 33% to 100%. So now you're going to be able to burn each time you crit every 10 seconds.
So you can kind of play around it. The other guy can play around it as well, your opponent. But at the same time, before you could almost get it up to perma, because you get it to almost 3 second duration. It was about a 3 second recharge, so it was literally just perma burn all the time. So you couldn't get the burn off. So this is going to change how that plays. What else is there? Oh, Elixir U, the same thing as Mistform.
Yes. So Elixir U is now going to be affected the same as Mistform, and is going to have the engineers no longer going to be able to use their utility skills.
Elixir S.
Sorry, I had.
Yeah, Elixir Small.
Elixir S.
So with those changes to Mistform and Elixir S, already a lot of people are just queuing abilities so that they burst when the NG or the LE comes out of it, do you think it's going to turn into something where NGs and LEs stop taking those abilities?
They may, but it also depends on whether or not you have a dodge up at the time. It depends on what your vigor looks like. Like, can I just, as soon as it comes out, can I dodge, heal? Like,
they are extremely powerful combat breaks as it is.
Yeah.
Even if it's just invulnerability. On the other side of things, you're still going to be able to stomp and res while you're.
So we'll have to see how that plays. But it's a great question, Ken. One thing I want to talk about real quick, which I just thought about, which was not in our notes. For the sigils, battle and energy are both really, really strong. There are, like, I would say 6 to 7 combos of those that you think are actually strong, and then there's a lot of them that are just not good. So one thing you guys should know is that we have the intention of, we were going to just hit those because that's where a lot of people will get a lot of their vigor from, because it replaces having vigor by just needing a dodge. Or you just get tons of might. So what we're going to do is just go through that entire list and just rework a lot of those. So that's something that's going to be coming down the pipe as well.
I main NG, so please, everyone who's listening, don't get mad at me. But I think the reason that battle is so strong for engineers is because you can swap into your kits and swap back out immediately, and it counts as a swap. Whereas on other classes, you have your weapon swap, and you're locked into that set for 5 to 10 seconds, depending on what you're playing.
Yeah, the same is also true with Elementalist.
Right. Okay, so I mean, for just those keeping track at home, the main nerf that we're going to see on this patch is going to be incendiary explosives.
Yep.
Okay.
And Elixir S.
Elixir S. Okay.
So,
Is there,
go ahead, bud.
Is there any chance of slightly buffing bombs in the future? Like making them unblockable or buffing the power damage or something like that? Because at the moment, grenades just outshine bombs. They're written everywhere.
The thing right there, I think you hit on the head, is that grenades are just really powerful compared to everything else. It's almost like you have to bring grenades in most builds for an NG. You've also seen stuff like if you're playing like Kylo, the stuff that an NG can do against enemy turrets, if you jump up on a wall, you can just throw a lob over grenades and then deal with the turret without ever having to commit to a fight. So it's just really strong. So I think it's actually more of engineer grenade hit might need to be looked at instead of everything else getting buffed. Maybe that needs to come down a little bit. But there's also a lot of skill to using grenades as a played it. You just got to really think ahead of where you need to be with all of your grenade hits.
Awesome.
So that's something we need to be looking at. But also, the reason that we're kind of afraid of bombs before is we didn't want to split it because bombs were destroying PvE, if you can imagine, because nothing knows how to get out of the way. So we might need to split those and then buff them in just PvP. That's something we talked about doing. And as we've said before on the forums, there was a huge thread about it. Ostrich Edge, somebody had started it. Basically, we need to start dealing with a lot of splits a lot more, which is what we're going to start doing now. It means that we have to do upkeep on more skills, but it just gives us so much more control over the balance. So we're just going to start doing it more and more and more, now that a lot of other stuff has settled down.
That's a triple split, right? You guys plan on doing splits between PvE, World v World, and SPVP?
If we need to.
Some of this, yes.
Yeah.
Do you think it would be a better idea to bring up those things, like, because grenades have been nerfed a lot in the past, and nerfing them in the future just because they're strong would just kind of bring NGs down as a whole?
I'd rather, if possible, split, like for instance, Bomb Kit, I'd rather split it and then buff it in PvP.
Okay.
Something like that.
But again,
that goes back
rather
to
bring things up rather than down. Overall.
We don't want
like,
to have to.
Do you have any like other builds that you have planned on hitting for engineers? Just because like bomb kit and grenades have been the only things that have really been viable in the past, and that's all you've really seen in PvP.
We still like the idea of turrets. It's just that turrets are really hard because it locks you into defending either near, or, or like aggressively going at far point. So this is kind of the nomenclature, like either protecting my near point or assaulting the far point if I need to. We want to see that turret engineer be able to do that, but right now with the numbers, I just don't think it's possible. So turrets are something else we're also looking at bringing up.
In addition, gadgets are not
great.
Yeah, I've heard like things that gadgets like really don't have any room because they have a huge cooldown. They're really situational.
And they don't have as many skills to them.
Like opportunity cost, right? I'd rather just bring a grenade kit instead of like wasting something on utility goggles or something. Like it just for that one slot, I just think that they're just not strong enough. So. We'll try to move on.
Keep going, I guess.
Sorry.
All right, Mesmer.
We're trying to hurry.
Go for this patch, more fixing bugs. That's kind of Mesmers have a pretty good place right now. They are very DPS heavy and they have pretty good survivability. But they're very good at holding capture points, and one of the reasons is that they have invulnerability skills which allow them to keep control of a point, whereas most of all the other invulnerability skills that we have for our professions will decap a point.
So we're actually going to be changing that. So distortion is now going to no cap.
Yep, there's going to be no cap. Though we're actually so This is the F4 skill only.
Yeah, so this is your F4 if you don't know. If you're playing a Mesmer, this is your F4,
Yes.
which means you've got to have out an illusion before you can even use it. So before, what they would do was just throw a lot of these out. If they needed to, they could distort and then still keep control of a point, which was really, really powerful.
Made some really easy cap.
But one of the other quality of life changes is going to be MOA. It's going to be
Yes, MOA is going to have you're going to be able to use that on the run. So instead, before you had to stop and cast it, pointing at the guy, now you'll be able to do that on the move,
as well as one of the skills.
Yeah, as well as the MOA number 5 skill, which would flee you away pretty much from anything across the entire world. We've actually reduced the distance that you can travel with that.
In addition, so you talked to, like, you guys are asking about other builds. Mantras, we wanted to reduce the cast time on those. We know that mantras maybe are not quite strong enough yet, but we're afraid of mantras because in the past we've had mantra builds that were complete lockdown builds. They would just literally just lock people down and you just couldn't get out of them, which were really, really powerful. They would just rip off any stability, keeps taking off stability, and then they would just keep you CC'd. You couldn't do anything, which is why we're scared of mantras.
They're all instant abilities once you have them channeled, so it takes away, or it doesn't take away, it makes it so the play is keeping the Mesmer from casting the mantra in the first place.
Yeah, so we reduced the cast time. It was a 3.25 before, I think. Now it's a 2.75, which is a 0.5 shave off of those. So if you've got 3 of them, that's a 1.5 net. So that's going to save you 1.5 seconds in a battle that you're not casting mantras, which is one of the hard parts. Once mantras are down, it really sucks to bring them back up into a fight because you're just going to be getting hit the whole time. So that's why a lot of people just don't bring mantras. So we're going to see if we can get people to start bringing those. If not, we'll see if we can do something else to bring down the cast time again.
Do you think mantras themselves, like the actives, are too weak? Because a lot of the other, like, say, heals and damage utilities, or like abilities, seem to do a lot more than mantras do.
They do.
Yeah.
But you can do them you can do them multiple times as well for the mantras. Which is why if you take the traits, you can get multiple hits out of them, which is why they're balanced around that aspect. So we'll have to see. If traded, they can just do a lot of damage, but I still think it just sucks to try to recast them in the middle of a fight, which is why a lot of people just can't bring them, I think. So.
Yep.
All right, so move on quick.
All right.
Necro. Go ahead.
I got a quick question about Mesmers. Do you know Illusion of Life? The biggest thing with Illusion of Life is that after it resurrects somebody, they get invulnerability. And
we're currently looking into those bugs.
Right. Okay.
I think the other problem with Illusion of Life is the cast time on it.
Yeah.
We're going to be increasing the cast time of it just a little bit.
Okay.
So since it's not a full resurrect, it doesn't need to have the full cast time. But at the same time, we wanted to make sure
you were just way too quick.
Determine what it was.
That's in the patch notes. That's another thing in the patch notes. Same thing with like find and retrieve. The ranger can do some really crazy stuff with getting people back up as well. That's also
Search and rescue.
Yeah. There you go. Oh yeah, sorry. Search and rescue. So we'll try to move on real quick.
Necromancer, fixing bugs, doing some small tweaks here and there.
2 big changes though.
Yeah, 2 big changes. The first one is Corrupt Boon and Epidemic are both going to be unblockable abilities now. Since they don't actually deal a strike, they kind of just affect conditions and boons like directly on the target. There's not really a need for it to be blocked. Like you're kind of just messing with the things that are on the guy.
It also sucked, right? Trying to hit an Aegis off of a Guardian,
Yes.
like it's just, well, I'm trying to get rid of the Aegis in the first place with corrupting the boom, but I can't because there's an Aegis in the way. So yeah.
I don't think Aegis is a problem. I think this is going to make Necros a lot stronger in terms of.
We think so too, which is why we didn't want to do too much for Necros. In addition, but
it was
that's
reduced
really
in the last patch where it didn't require Epidemic did not require line of sight. It just like you could just cast it anywhere and your target would automatically spread conditions. So this is one of those things also that we wanted to.
So Epidemic is also unblockable because it requires line of sight. So those 2 things together mean that the Necro can just manipulate things directly, which is a really powerful ability to have. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Also, we have created the hit points on a few of the minions slightly.
The Flesh Worm and the Flesh Golem have both increased slightly.
And then just the aggro changes that were applied to all minions will also help the Necro minions as well. So one thing too we wanted to talk about too is that for Necros, you guys will now be able to have you can see your entire bar when you're in Death Shroud. You can see Connies, you can see Boons and stuff like that. You'll notice now that you have a 5th slot, which is kind of empty. That 5th slot is going to be filled. We can't give away too many details yet, but we're also thinking about actually putting in a new condition into the game, which will happen the first time that you ever see it will be in the 5th slot for the Necromancer when they're in Death Shroud. So that's something else that's going to be coming down the pipe.
That's where it's slated for. Leave us some feedback on the forums.
Yeah.
What you would. What
We'll be
you
throwing
would
out
like
some
it to
ideas
be.
for that stuff, but
Is there any kind of idea what kind of condition you want for that?
so initially what we want to try is we want to try something that's like a dark dot, you can imagine. So in addition to the bleed, the poison, the burning, you would have a fourth one, which is a dark themed dot that would have a different secondary ability. So like poison reduces, something like that. It would be something that's very similar to that. So we're going to try with something like that.
Okay.
I've got one thing on Necro. The marks.
Yep.
Right now, if you stack marks on, say, if you're like guarding back point or something like that, or if you've got your marks laid out, you
Sure.
can just dodge roll right through them and burn all the Necro's marks, and they can do nothing about it. It's not like
Yep.
dodge rolling through like a ranger's traps, and then they proc, and then you're able to sit in them for a moment. You can literally just negate all of the marks right away.
Yeah.
Is there any plan to maybe like delay the when it goes off, or maybe make those like reside on the ground for a little bit longer?
It's possible.
It's possible, but it's also one of those things, if you're putting them all 5 in one spot, like you're kind of opening yourself out to that, which is why a lot of times I would imagine you would stagger those, or you would bait with the 2 first because it has such a low cooldown, and then hit them with the chill and the 3. Then after that goes off, you would hit with the 5 for fear, and then if you need to, after Connie pressure, you'd go with the 4 to remove Connies. That's something like that, right? I don't know. They're also
Is there
a
any
lot-
chance? Is there any chance of making marks another greater marks trait? Is there any chance of just making marks baseline greater marks, but without the unblockable feature, and maybe combining the unblockable part and the 20% skill reduction cooldown, and then use trait to death magic, maybe?
Yeah,
Because at
maybe
the moment
so.
you can't run a staff if you don't run that trait.
It's possible.
The thing we're worried about, though, to be honest, and this is kind of what you're talking about, is that because if you're fighting, for instance, let's say I'm fighting a guardian who's trying to hold a point. If I have my unblockable trait, then I can swap over to my staff. I know I have an unblockable fear on my 5. I can throw that and interrupt his shelter, which is what a lot of guardians will use to keep themselves up. So that, as well as if they have up stability, I can now corrupt boon, and I can take that stability and then fear them right through their shelter. That's 2 really strong counters to what the guardian can do right now. So we're kind of
What I
We want to be
Does that make
careful.
sense?
with those.
just making the traits, the marks is big, but not giving it the unblockable feature. So making the unblockable part like
Bigger
the trait by
marks.
itself.
So what I hear you saying is that marks suck initially, and you want them to just be better initially.
Pretty much, yeah.
I've been playing without the trait lead recently. I kind of
You pretty much need to run the trait to use
stuff.
stuff.
You kind of have to run the trait.
It is hard to get without the trait.
And it's one of those things we'll look at, because it's the same way that we looked at warrior stuff and said some of these are just bad traits, we need to combine them. It's the same thing with some of those necros, especially thieves as well. Thief needs to get a lot of compression, I think, on their traits as well. But necro can also have some of that as well. So it's a good point.
I remember a discussion a long time ago about weapon swapping in Disc Shroud, and I forgot what you guys said about that. Could you guys like possibly reiterate your opinions of that?
I remember it was an unintended change, but it's gonna stay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Way to pay attention, Caed.
I paid attention to part of it.
He's tired. He's tired. It's
good.
okay.
It's all good. Next one will be the Guardian. We want to move on, I think.
Yeah, let's just try to go quick.
Okay, continue. We're going to continue to fix bugs and improve viability for the Guardian overall. For things we've done this patch, you can notice.
So
I think I like the signets. Signet. You have Signet of Bane, Mercy, and Wrath. They're all kind of unique in how they, in the stats that they apply.
Yeah.
I'm kind of liking how they play out.
Some improvements there. Some spirit
weapons have
improvements.
had their health increased yet again. And there were some skills that were actually blocking. They were destroying projectiles and other things that were supposed to be unblockable. So like trebuchet shots.
Yeah.
In World vs. World, where Guardians could use like Sanctuary or
Yeah.
Shield of Absorption, just destroy the trap shots.
Yeah. That's been
So
changed.
that's gonna be fixed in this next patch. We're looking at actually improving their traits and making them more viable as a whole.
I mean, we wanted to be really careful not to.
Yeah.
I hate to use the word nerf, but we didn't want to bring down too much with the Guardian, because with the Warrior now getting the ability to deal with boons better, the Warrior can actually deal with that Guardian, and then the Thief can start to take some of those boons away. We wanted it to leave the Guardian where it was at, because while it is strong and it's seen in a lot of compositions, like in PvE, in dungeons, in War v World, in PvP, it's a really strong class that's seen in a lot of different places. We wanted to not do too much to it, because we feel like a lot of these other classes will start to give it some different problems. So if anything, you'll probably see Guardians start to come up to deal with some of these new additions. So we want to see how those play out first. So we don't want to touch Guardians too much.
I've got a very biased comment to make here. I main engineer, so the I forgot what weapon it is. It's the spirit weapon that gives you the shield of absorption, and it has essentially 24 seconds out of 30 seconds uptime.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do about it as an engineer. You cannot break that unless you have someone on your team go in and melee it. Seems sort of strong. I mean, it affects. Not rangers nearly as much because they can go in and melee, but any class that's purely ranged has no counter to that.
Yeah.
And I hate saying it here because it's going to make maybe people start using it a little bit more. But
now you've done it.
You don't have a crowbar? You have a crowbar?
I don't use crowbar. I don't know. I guess I'm bad.
If you're dying, crowbar out, dude.
All right, next time I'll bring crowbar.
No, but that's one of those things too with the matchups too. We'll have to see how the meta plays off of these changes to see what that does to the Engie and to see what that does to the Guardian. Maybe that Guardian's going to have to switch to something else to deal with the Thief and then now the Warrior, as well as the unblockable stuff from the Necro, which means it's going to change up their build, which might allow the Engineer then to get in there and deal with those guys. So we'll have to see what that's going to do to their builds and what that does to the meta.
Going back to that, like blocking the projectiles, is that going to affect like LE offhand focus as well, like the wins?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, when we say these changes, a lot of times too, we'll use an example from one of the classes, but it's actually taking place in all the scripts for all similar skills. So, but we didn't say it, so it's a great clarification point. That's pretty much all we had.
That's all we got.
An hour.
Only an hour?
Yeah.
Sorry, dudes.
Quickly. That's okay.
A quick, retail seems to be like a really strong thing in team fights with a lot of AoE comps, and I was wondering, like, it shuts down a lot of builds that could be viable if retail wasn't an issue, and perhaps if there's ways to change it, like putting an internal cooldown or having charges maybe decrease the damage scaling or the duration.
Yeah, so part of it is with fields. That's part of the thing. You get a lot of procs off of the fields for those. Also, we want to turn retail with the new UI. It's going to be easier to see. But at the same time, we want retail to be a reactionary thing. That, like, let's say that I see somebody coming in. Let's just say that for whatever reason, somebody has a 100 Blades Warrior and they're in PvP. I don't know what they're thinking, but they're thinking, right? So they jump into me, and I want to like throw up my retail as soon as I see the 100 Blades come in. But what we don't want is kind of the situation that'll arise where somebody has like 70% uptime on retail. It's just with all the procs and everything, it just keeps coming up. That's not fun because you can't. That's not the way that it's intended to be played. So a lot of that we think goes back to the fields, which is what we're going to be doing to make it such that it's more of a short burst, retail, and then it's gone. So that way, a lot of the AOE spam stuff that can come in to deal with AOE fights can actually be viable and not just blow yourself up off of retail.
Yeah, a lot of it comes from the light fields themselves.
Yeah.
I've got one question for you. I know you guys have been here for longer than we should have been, but I think it was first state of the game or second, I don't know. You guys gave us a list of priorities in terms of PvP development, and it mentioned getting the two-team ranking and the rankings, the lean boards out. Now that we have that stuff in, we have Spectator coming in just shortly. Same with customs. What is the new list of priorities?
Sure. One of them's already been mentioned. I mean, you guys talked about solo queue. That's one of the things that we think is also very important. So that's one of the things that's on our list now. Also, we think that rewards for new players, we think that progression, those are also things that are very important. So we've basically just broken up again now that we're watching custom arenas and spectator mode for a lot of bugs. But now we're going to start breaking up and start getting a lot of other stuff done, which is the early game progression for PvP players. It's going to be a lot of rewards. We're talking about doing a lot of reward revamps so that you get more benefit out of playing PvP, just like you do in PvE. And then, stuff like solo queues. A lot of just the tools then, after we get those things out, is just a lot more tools for you guys to do shoutcasting and stuff like that. As well as, I can't say too much, but us supporting and being more of a part of the community. So once we get all those tools ready, then we're going to start doing more pushes for some bigger things that I can't talk about yet. But once all those tools are in, then we're going to start pushing.
When it's ready.
Yeah, when it's ready.
Is there any plans on, what are the plans for shoutcasting? How are you going to incentivize people to shoutcast games?
Yeah, I can't talk about that yet, but there are plans to. We really, and this is back to Caed's earlier question about, like, why are we not just doing the traditional thing where you can just record something and keep it on your computer and watch that? Because we really want to push the shoutcasting community. And feel like the analogy that I would use is, imagine that you're just watching a basketball game or a soccer game. That's cool, but it's just so much better when you have somebody who really understands the game explaining to you, having flavor commentary, that type of stuff. So we really want to push the spectators and the shoutcasters of the Guild Wars 2 world. We want to really push those people. So we have a lot of plans for using the website and all that kind of stuff, but pushing a lot of those people and being a part of your community and backing you guys. I just can't give all the way the details, but yeah, we really want to back you guys on that stuff. So cool. Just can't say too much yet. Sorry.
All right. Well, like I said, thanks for coming on and staying with us a little bit longer than we planned.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
I really like getting on here and Sharing what we got.
This is going to be a little bit rough. We're going to continue on without the devs. We haven't planned this, so when they drop, I don't know what's going to happen.
We'll see.
I think.
Cool.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go watch.
I'm just gonna Alt F4 and see. Good luck. Okay, cool. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for having us on. We'll see how this goes.
See you next time.
Yeah,
Speak
thanks,
to it,
guys.
Bye.
Thanks.
Let's see if I can figure this.
Uh-oh.
There we
Oh, it
go.
wasn't too bad. Oh, man, it's so much quieter with them gone now, actually.
I know there's less
All that
background
background
noise.
noise. Alright, so I'm going to try to adjust these frames or whatnot. You guys have any comments from what we just learned?
I think the game. I think they're trying to maybe try and bring up different builds. I think they're trying to, yeah, basically bring up different builds and try and make other builds viable rather than nerfing everything. Especially when they talked about Sword, Dagger, and Thief, and maybe changing some things on Ellie's and things like that.
I think the signet changes in general can like backfire possibly, and then I like the Spirit Watch changes. And overall, a lot of the changes seem beneficial to the game, and like improving the meta.
Yeah, I think some of the signet changes could, like Assassin's Signet is one that I'm a bit scared of. If you get 180 base power and then you're getting the 15% damage when you activate it.
You cut my face in half, by the way, Grouch.
I haven't done anything yet. I'm still figuring out how to fix this, so don't worry about it. Caed, tell me what you think about the mug change. You didn't seem that happy about it.
I think it's a little bit over the top.
Care to elaborate?
Pretty much you're dropping your damage on steel to consistent to 2.5k, and it really like it shuts you down compared to like Scepter, Dagger, Ellie, which would do the same amount of bursts in the same amount of time, or other things that have a lot more utility to a team. And I think they're gonna force thieves into either running Sword, Dagger, or really have to be on top of timing your bursts.
Do you think Leech and Venoms will be viable, with, especially the new heal on Mug? Do you think it'll make a sustain spec maybe, for Thief?
I think leeching Venoms in general is not very strong unless you have a really good team to play Venom Share with. But I think it'll be a lot more viable with Warriors getting buffed. If you run Venom Share Thief with a Warrior, it's really deadly.
That's really all you guys got. All that info gleaned, and
I don't know what to speak about.
I was expecting more tears, as John put it. Was not nearly enough tears right now.
I don't really know about the HGH change.
As an NG main, it feels a little light-handed, which is good, I guess. It's better than getting nuked, but it's
It
not
feels
a lot
like
of difference.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty much the same thing going on.
I think the biggest
I don't
problem
know. I think the Elixir S change is very good. If you can't swap to Elixir S while, if you can't swap to Kits while you're in Elixir S, like that was a lot of damage for the NG just during that.
He, Sharp mentioned they're going to make basically the distortions going to be no cap when you're on a node or whatnot. Did he mention anything about that being used to cap the buffs on Temple?
He did not. I meant to ask him that, to be honest.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest problems with it. I'm sure that they're changing that too, but that needs to be addressed. It's like, what, a 4-second cap, and you can immune for 4 seconds total?
Oh, I think the Ride the Lightning change is huge. And it's really
I really like that change.
Indeed. All right. Well, I did want to talk about two things before we bailed out today. First, I want to kind of just get you guys' opinion on the leaderboards. I think the community's kind of torn on this. I think I was really excited when they first came out. I definitely tried my hardest to climb, and I think a lot of people did as well. But then it just kind of, I don't know, it lost its luster a little bit. The problem is that when you queue, like if you get a high rank, you can only play in your pre-made or whoever your trusted group of friends are. And if outside of that, you can only hot join if you want to preserve rank. Like you can't YOLO queue or solo queue unless you want to risk losing that. And I know, Caed, you went from like what, you were number 2 for a while, and you've dropped all the way down to like what? 550. 550, yeah.
As I went from 3 to 550, and then I mean, like, the thing is, though, if you play with a pre-made, like, I made that up and went back to 9 in a day. And I think, like, in A, the leaderboards are a lot more volatile than they are in EU, just because there's no one really consistently playing compared to EU, where there's a lot of teams that are playing.
Yeah, I just think the leaderboards are really volatile at the moment.
I guess that's the best way to describe it. I'm not proud of this, but I was at one point ranked 10 on NA, and we faced. I was YOLO queuing, and we faced some. This is kind of mean. Some people that I'd never heard of before, and we ended up losing. And I power leveled those guys from off of the leaderboard. Weren't even on it, and it power leveled them 580 ranks. Up to like the 400 something spot, and I still feel ashamed for it, but I mean, just kind of goes to show. And I dropped to 150, by the way. I dropped a good amount of ranks for that, but just the amount that you move is kind of ridiculous at the moment.
They should probably add like a rating cap or something, so you can only earn or lose so much in one game.
That's a good idea. How's your EU experience with the leaderboards, Symbolic? I noticed you guys were pretty high up for a while, and then you guys stopped playing for a little while, and you guys slowly dropped. Yeah,
it's pretty much whoever. I think Denshi and some of the IDL guys are like at the top, but generally, if you beat teams, you go up. If you lose against teams, you go down. But it's like the top 100 players are generally only pre-mades, or the top 200 are only pre-mades, and then after that, it's mainly solo queuers and duo queuers, stuff like that. I don't know. I honestly think that the leaderboards at the moment, especially when they've just talked about solo queue, then that they've got plans to bring in, I think this leaderboard right now doesn't really matter if they're going to bring in a solo queue, because yeah,
I think once customs are out, they're going to ignore. Like, people are going to stop really caring about leaderboards. They're just going to be scrimming and using customs.
Yeah.
I think ultimately, until there is a solo queue, they won't matter as much as I would like them to, unfortunately. Like I said before, I was really all about them when they first came out. I think a lot of people were too, but as time goes on, like, you really don't have as much fun in the game when you only play when certain people are on, and you can't play whenever you want. Like, if you really care, the only thing you can do is make a second account, which is actually happening quite a bit, or you hot join.
Or a third account.
Yeah. And another thing that's kind of a bummer is we did have a lot of really good EU players come over to NA and play on our servers, and now the leaderboards are kind of littered with trial accounts that'll never get played again. A lot of people in the top 25 especially that are never going to get that account played again just because of the trial weekend. So hopefully those get purged out, but I think the leaderboards on NA aren't nearly as accurate as EU is.
I don't know, the ratings change from day to day. So.
That's true. I do have some screenshots of the... I mean, right now we're looking at the screenshot. This is from yesterday, so this isn't accurate or whatnot, but are you guys happy with the amount of info that we get from ArenaNet's leaderboards? I mean, they did mention that they're going to try to release more API for it, and they're going to kind of keep an eye on that and kind of give people that are running
yours
fan
is
sites.
outdated.
I told you, it's from yesterday.
Yeah, refresh. Refresh, man.
It's an image. I cannot refresh the image. But yeah, I don't know. I've got another screenshot here of one from GW Shack. This is mine. Don't make fun of me, but I think I'll be honest. I think ArenaNet is probably fine as long as they release the API and let these other sites like have these leaderboards able to pull the leaderboard info in on their own and kind of do their own individual setup for it. I think it's fine. Like, I really do like GW Shack. This is gwshack.info for anyone that's not familiar with it. It's fairly legit, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at League of Legends, they only provided the ratings. I don't think ArenaNet needs to do anything, but they need to give third parties the resources to actually take information and make their own sort of twists on the leaderboard. Are
you guys still obsessed with your individual rating, or are the rankings fine?
I don't think the only thing I'm bothered about is if I solo queue, I face against pre-mates until I drop about 300 ranks, and only then will I come up against different solo queuers. That's the biggest problem I've got.
I honestly have more fun trolling people in solo queue than I do actually playing and trying to get my rank up.
I could see that. I could see that. All right. Well, we're gonna kind of wrap it up. We got one more thing I want to talk about here. With the advent of custom arenas and spectator, there are obviously some tournaments that are trying to pop up here, and I've got a list of them here. Just the ones that I at least know about. I guess the idea here is that people try to get excited for the game and start playing it again. Maybe get your teams together. I've got a list here. Not all of these have official dates yet or are completely fleshed out. I'm kind of just giving people kind of an idea what's happening here. As you guys might have heard or heard through the grapevine, Guru's looking to host one. We're gonna push that back a little bit, maybe a month or so. We'll have a post up sometime soon, kind of giving the details on that. There's Miss League that's going to be hosted by Aussie Archer. That looks like it should be pretty good once he has everything fleshed out. Kings of Beta is by That's So Pish, which is an EU team. I know they're going to have theirs just for in-game gold. They're trying to get that one set up right now. I've got the tiny URL right there that goes to their brackets. You can kind of sign your team up there. I know some people don't want to play for in-game gold. They want to play for real-life monies, but I think at this point anything is probably good.
I think just forming a competitive community is probably best for the game right now.
I agree.
This certainly promotes it.
Tamaker, you guys probably know him from early mornings. He streams. He does like the gold giveaways and whatnot. He's going to host a tournament as well. He's looking to get over 100 gold, maybe 150, who knows, however long it takes. He's probably going to be doing EU1 first, just because I would have to say that the scene is a little bit healthier on EU right now than it is on NA. I know that there's at least, 8 teams on EU right now? Maybe 10?
Well, not yet.
Yeah, okay.
There's a lot of teams.
And NA is mostly just super pugs trying to farm rating and whatever. So hopefully NA kind of gets its crap together soon. GW League, don't have a ton of info on this. I talked to the guy last night. Apparently he's trying to do it like a Cal style from basically the CSGO days, or not CSGO days, but CS 1.6, I guess. I didn't really play the game, so I don't know a lot about it, but they're looking to have like basically like an 8-week season and then playoffs at the very end. And then finally, I know Team Paradigm's looking to host a tournament sometime, I heard possibly in June. I don't know the specific details on that one yet. It's kind of a rough, fresh idea, but hopefully this gets people kind of in gear.
I don't even know about that one.
Jeez, out of the loop, man. Well, I talked to the people who do know, and apparently that's happening in a couple months, so I'll be sure to fill you in on the details, Symbolic.
Thank you, Grouch. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Do you guys have anything else to talk about? If not, we can actually go ahead and wrap it up as one of our shorter shows.
I think we covered most everything.
Yeah, I think we did. I missed Fantaram today.
I know, Fantaram, man. What the hell? You know, this is the second time that you guys have messed up on me. Like, was it Zeph was supposed to be on like 3 or 4 episodes ago, and he got in a car accident, a selfish bastard, and missed it, and so we had to have Helseth instead, which I guess a lot of people actually really liked that one, so I guess it wasn't too bad, and we ended up having Zeph on last time, so that was all good. We actually almost had him on today to fill Fantaram's spot, but then I told him no at the very last second, so I kind of feel like a jerk about that too. But yeah, I think the information that we got today was pretty decent. I guess we'll just have to wait until next Tuesday, I guess, to see how it all pans out.
I think Natty wanted me to give him a shout out, so shout out to Natural Portman.
Oh, Natty. Love my Natty. He's got the best stomp prevention build NA.
I don't like that guy. I don't like him.
Wow. Well, he probably won't hear about this, that's for sure.
He's definitely in chat.
I don't know about that.
It's not that I don't like him. It's just I don't like him. It's nothing personal.
Okay.
Caed knows why. So.
Well, you can't leave us out. You can't leave us in the dark, man.
Well, basically, I can never play on NA anymore because I just can't play on NA anymore. Because I used Caed's account before, which had my character names on, and apparently he's been trolling on my character names.
Oh, no, he hasn't.
Ruining your E-reputation.
He has not.
He's ruining my...
He has not. That was someone else. I kind of give that account to everyone, so...
Yeah, how come I don't have that account, Caed?
You want it?
I do want that.
Okay, I'll give you info.
Thank you.
No problem.
Alright, well, I guess we'll just go ahead and wrap it up. Thanks for coming on, guys. Fantaram, no one likes you. Again, thanks to the devs for coming on as well. Appreciate the update. But yeah, thanks for watching. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel and whatnot. Follow us, whatever it's called. Yeah, thanks for watching.